Hello, and welcome to Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. We just did a double story on Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. And from time to time, I've decided I'm going to cover different cities and states where multiple crimes of the same nature have taken place. Today, I've got for you not one, but two stories of Utah men that tried to hire hitmen to take people out. One of these stories is from just months ago. It is a brand new story. You're thinking money, divorce, the usual, right? Yes on one, but not with the other. The motivation behind the first crime is something I have actually never heard before. Today we are talking about murder for hire. Murder for hire in Utah. Utah hitmen. I'm your host, Stacy Lee. Let's begin. Last Thursday, I did a story about a cult near my hometown of Cedar City, Utah called Knights of the Crystal Blade. My hometown is this little tiny place, and that's now. When I was born and raised there, it was less than 10,000 people. But for some reason, some which I can think of and some which I can't really put my finger on, there seems to be an inordinate amount of strange crimes from that area. Not murders, not robberies. The rate for those things is about what you'd expect. But very strange crimes, from drilling holes in people's heads to open their third eye, to hate crimes, to a very strange case involving kilos of cocaine and the FBI. I'm working on that one. But again today, I've got a wild one right out of my hometown. This is 43-year-old Christopher Pence. He worked for Microsoft as an engineer, and all of the articles that I've read state that he is an evangelical Christian. Now, that can mean different things. I haven't been able to find out which exact church he went to in Cedar City. Obviously, the vast majority of people in Cedar City are Mormons. In Utah, except in a few cities, it's not like it used to be. Mormons are not the overwhelming majority in a lot of cities. Not in my city, St. George. Not in Park City, not in Salt Lake City. But anyway, Christopher and his family are not Mormon. They are evangelical. Christopher Pence and his wife, Michelle, have 11 biological children together. 11. But that wasn't enough. They wanted more. They had this very large house. It looks to me either out by Wichita, which is kind of this really rural housing development, southwest of Cedar City, or maybe it's out towards Enoch. Remember the story out of Enoch about the Michael Haight family annihilation a couple of winters ago? Gosh, when I was talking about all the weird stories out of my hometown, I didn't even mention the Haight family annihilation. This is the guy who killed his entire family, including his mother-in-law and then himself, out in Enoch. If you'd like to watch that episode, this is the thumbnail, and the video is on the playlist Dining with Death. But from this aerial shot, which is the only shot I could find of the house, it's clear that this is not in a subdivision in Cedar City. It's on 20 acres. You don't get that kind of property in Cedar City. So it's got to be in one of the outlying areas. Let's go back in time about 6 years to 2018. Christopher Pence and his wife, Michelle, decide that they're going to add to their family, and the way they go about it is interesting. The Pences placed this online advertisement for children. Like I said, interesting. It says, "We would like to adopt a child who is less than 11 years old. We are open to boys or girls. We feel we can accommodate a sibling group of up to 5 kids." So they're saying, even though they have 11 biological children, they can take on 5 more kids. The ad goes on to say, "Almost any ethnic background will blend in with our family." I'm not sure what almost any ethnic background means. I find that weird. It says, "We do not mind having contact with the child's biological parents by email or by phone or by mail or in person, provided the parent is not abusive to the child. We do not mind having continuing contact with the child's former foster parents by email or by phone or by mail or in person. In general, we would love a young sibling group who are having trouble staying together because of size, who love animals, family, and music to grow up together in a loving, stable home. I am so cynical. Am I a horrible person? I think I just might be a horrible person because there is something about this that sets off my spidey sense. Here are these people offering to do this wonderful thing. And maybe it's because I know what ends up happening, but I don't know how I feel about people advertising that they want to adopt a whole family of kids. I am so cynical. It just sets off some alarm bells for me. Through this ad that the Pences place online, they meet this woman, Christina Cordero, who was 33 years old at the time. Christina apparently shares the same faith as the Pences do. I don't know the details as to why she would give up her children, so I'm not going to judge any of that or say much about it. But over time, discussing with Christina, the Pences become comfortable with her and she becomes comfortable with them. And Christina decides that she is going to place her 5 children with the Pence family to be raised by Christopher and Michelle Pence. This is something I cannot wrap my mind around, so I am not even going to try. Christina let go all 5 of her children, and they went to live with the Pences, and Christopher and Michelle Pence legally adopted the kids. I wish I had more details on why this happened. I've admitted this to you guys before. When I don't understand something or when I find something to be upsetting, I like to learn everything I can about it. I don't know if it's part of my, like I've told you before, I got a touch of the tism. But when I'm upset about something, learning the reasons behind it brings me comfort for some reason. I don't know why this mother would let her 5 kids go to be adopted by another family, but I'm sure she had her reasons. Now, apparently for the first year and a half or so, everything went pretty much as planned. Christina was allowed to have contact with her children. She was allowed to speak with them, email them, and she even visited them from time to time. If you are watching this and you are trained in psychology or a counselor, will you weigh in the comments on something I have a question on? Is that harder or easier on the kids? I genuinely would like to know. Is it better to have a clean break, or do the kids feel maybe less abandoned if they continue to see their biological parents? I would really like to know, and I'm sure other people would too. Christina lives in Hoosick Falls, New York, here on this rural property in one of these buildings, but she would from time to time see her kids in person. I'm making the assumption that she would travel to Utah, as that would be much easier than having 16 children and 2 adults travel to New York. I cannot wrap my head around this. I have my own opinions on families this large. We do see families this big from time to time in Utah, and I always feel like none of the kids get enough attention. I am also of the opinion that I don't really think it's fair because the older kids end up raising the younger kids, but that's my opinion. Something begins to change around 2019, and there begins to be tension between Christina and the Pences. Christina starts to notice she is not getting as many phone calls as she used to, and her own phone calls are not being returned. She's not getting emails returned, and so she starts to ask a few questions. And when she does, the Pences, especially Christopher and Christina, argue about the way the kids are being raised. Christina had maintained some legal rights to be in contact with her biological children, and she must have retained some sort of parental rights, because later on she tries to get them back. If the Pences had outright adopted these kids, that would not be an option. I have not seen the actual adoption filing. I did find some legal documents online, but there must have been some provisions in there that gave Christina some rights. But before things went south, Christina had court-ordered visitation. I am assuming that she must have had to sign away some parental rights, but not all of them. Always remember, in any custody situation, a divorce, a custody agreement, a custody fight, the judge does not care about the parents. The judge's concern is what is best for the child or the children. The judge only looks at what the child's patterns are, what the child is used to, what will cause the least amount of disruption in the child's life. The judge cares very little about how the parents feel about this or about that. The judge is supposed to look out for the child and do what is best for the child. And often the courts will appoint what's called a guardian ad litem for the child or the children. And that person, the guardian ad litem's job is also to look out for the best interest of the children. children. Parents want to get into these wars in court and fight over kids, and that really just annoys judges and guardian ad litems. The judge is there to determine what is best for the child. Of course, parents' attitudes have a lot to do with that. If one parent is really nasty and fighting a lot and, screaming on voicemails and things like that, that's going to affect the way the judge feels. But the parents' feelings in general about the situation aren't really part of the equation. So because everyone in this particular situation agrees that what is best is that the children be adopted by the Pences, but remain in contact with their biological mother, Christina, that's what the judge orders. The problem is, like I said, by the end of 2019, Christina is not getting her regular visitation. And then all contact is cut off by the Pences. The Pences, specifically Christopher, was like, these are our kids now. There's no need for you to be involved. And so he's basically going back on his word, which shows he is a dishonest man. Christopher did not hold to the promises he made to Christina, and he wasn't even obeying the court order. The court documents that I dug up said Christina had decided she did not like the way the kids were being raised, and she had basically changed her mind, and she wanted her kids back. There must have been provisions for this, because it starts a fight. Christina informed the Pences that she wanted the kids back, and things got immediately very nasty between the parties. Christopher not only cuts Christina out of the kids' lives, he takes it much, much further. Christopher Pence, this Microsoft engineer, gets on the dark web and starts visiting a website called Darknet. He's visiting this site in July of 2021. He starts kind of fishing around on this site, which includes message boards for all kinds of dark and deviant behavior. What is Christopher Pence doing on the dark web? Oh, he's looking for a hitman. Christopher Pence wants to have Christina Cordero, the adopted children's biological mother, as well as the children's biological father, murdered. Christopher Pence is shopping on the dark web looking for a killer, and he's offering to pay $16,000 in Bitcoin for the job. Someone with a conscience sees these messages and contacts the FBI. This confidential source has never been named, but it appears it is someone that was speaking with Christopher Pence about doing the job, because the confidential informant has records of communications and records of payments received from Christopher Pence for the job. It might even have been someone in law enforcement. Who knows? I think if you're dumb enough to get online and try to order up a hitman like you're door dashing, he claims to be a Microsoft engineer, but that doesn't sound too smart to me. Christopher first starts talking to this informant on July 16th, 2021, and he last communicates with the informant on August 9th, 2021. So this was just a few weeks of communication. The informant even had photos of the children's biological mother and father. How did this person get the photos? Christopher Pence pulled them out of a photo album that Christina had made for her children for them to look at and remember what she and their biological father looked like. How sick is that? She makes a photo album, and then this creep uses photos from that photo album to show their supposed killer what they look like. Christopher Pence also used some type of cryptocurrency wallet service, which is well known for shielding all of the transactions to send the money to the informant. Now, you're true crime people. You know that when money like this changes hands over state lines, it becomes a federal crime. And that's why the FBI gets involved instead of the local police. As I was reading through the legal filings, it was so weird to see Christopher Pence's IP address provided by InfoWest, which is our local internet service that's started by this guy here in town. Isn't it always weird when something like this happens in your hometown and you see like all your little local companies and stores and people that you know? It's kind of disturbing. After the confidential informant comes forward, the FBI then has to, of course, inform Christina and the children's father that Christopher Pence has taken a hit out on them. The agents on the case brought Christina in, and on September 3rd, 2021, she was told, hey, somebody's trying to have you murdered. Can you imagine? The FBI calls you. First of all, I would probably be deceased instantly. But if I lived through the phone call, to then find out someone is trying to have you murdered, someone has paid a hitman to kill you, that has got to be some type of experience for sure. The FBI agents get their ducks in a row. They conduct all their interviews. They gather all of their evidence. And then on October 27th, 2021, investigators conducted a raid here at the Pence house outside of Cedar City, Utah. This photo was taken from a circling helicopter during the raid. The agents seized electronic devices as well as written evidence. Christopher Pence is arrested, and as the search warrant is executed, the cops conduct an interview with Christopher. In that first interview, he admits that yes, he was the user of the darknet website, and that yes, he accessed that website for the sole purpose of soliciting a person to murder Christina and the children's father. He says, yes, I did send $16,000 to this person, and yes, I did use photographs out of the baby album so the killer would know who to murder. Christopher Pence then turns to the agent that's interviewing him and says, have I ruined my life? No, Christopher, you f***ing houseplant. This was a great move. This was impeccable judgment, totally normal. You are not crazy or dangerous at all. Have I ruined my life? Oh, my hell. So Christopher Pence gets hauled into jail, and the story breaks nationwide that this guy has hired a hitman on the dark web to murder the biological parents of his adopted kids. Christopher's sister, this woman named April Foles, starts a GoFundMe page for Michelle because, you see, Michelle does not work and she will need money. You know, Michelle obviously doesn't work because there's 16 kids at home, but it goes beyond that. Who's saying it? Who's at home right now saying it? I know some of you are. Michelle stays home because she homeschools the kids. We just got finished talking about 2 different cases of family annihilation in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. That episode came out last week, and I gave a big old rant about how so many of these murder cases involving murder in the family, I see homeschooling as an element. I had no clue these kids were homeschooled when I picked this story to research. But as soon as it popped up that they were homeschooled, I was like, there it is again. On my life, I do not pick these cases because the kids are homeschooled. I don't. Homeschooling just seems to crop up over and over again in these religious, fundamentalist, very right-wing, strange, and extreme belief murders. So anyways, Christopher's sister April writes in the GoFundMe description that Michelle has to pay the mortgage, buy food, put gas in the car, and that the family is most likely going to lose this 6,000 square foot house. The Pences bought that 6,000 square foot house with 7 bedrooms on 20 acres of land for $637,000 in November of 2020. They put like $100,000 down. Christopher Pence goes on trial and he pleads guilty. He is sentenced to 7 years in prison, and then after that, when he gets out, he will have 3 years of supervised release.
And who admitted to trying to arrange the killing of 2 people from Rensselaer County has been sentenced. A federal prosecutor say 43-year-old Christopher Pence of Utah will serve 7 years in prison. He pleaded guilty to paying $16,000 worth of Bitcoin in exchange for the murder of 2 people from Hoosick Falls. The intended victims were not hurt. Pence has been in prison since his arrest in 2021.
Christina told a reporter, quote, "Our faith is what led us to connect with the Pences in the first place. We believe that they share our faith, and we're still hoping that they will return to the same sentiments it all began with. I just want the kids safe and taken care of. And the rest of it, I hope the adults can be adults and work it out." It's a warm, sunny afternoon in 1996, Salt Lake City, Utah. This is the time of year when the leaves start to turn colors, and there's just a slight hint of chill in the air in the mornings, a little more of a chill in the evenings, but the days are warm and lit with golden sun, and the mountains surrounding the valley don't yet have snow on their peaks. Paul Allen is arriving home to his apartment in North Salt Lake City. As he walked up to the front door, he noticed it was open, and that was strange. The hair on the back of his neck stood up, and he was suddenly overcome with a feeling of dread. Cautiously, he took a step inside the apartment, and then another, and then he saw her. His wife, Jill Allen, was lying in the hallway on the floor of the apartment, and she wasn't moving. Paul ran to the phone and called 911. Dispatch answered and asked, "What is your emergency?" Paul Allen replied, "My wife. Something's wrong with her." Paul told the dispatcher that he thought his wife was still alive, and he continued to talk to the dispatcher. The dispatcher asked, "Does she have any prior heart conditions?" Paul said, "No, but she's all bloody." The dispatcher replied, "She's bloody?" And Paul said, "Yeah." The officer said, "Did you see any blood, any wounds on her? Are there any cut marks on her?" And Paul said, "I don't know. I haven't looked." And then he said, "Please send an ambulance to our apartment." Paul went to his wife's body and began to move her body around looking for wounds. He found a large wound on the back of Jill's head, and then he broke down on the 911 call. He started yelling, "No, no," over and over. By this time, a friend of Paul's had come into the apartment, and he took over the call. The dispatcher told the friend, "Tell him to calm down. Help is on the way."
I want emergency. My wife, something's wrong with her.
It's August 28th, 1996. Paul Allen finds his wife, Jill, lying in the hallway of their apartment in North Salt Lake. He thinks she's still alive.
Does she have any prior heart problems?
No, she's all bloody.
Well, she's all bloody.
Yeah.
Do you see any blood or any wounds or anything on her?
Huh?
Do you see any wounds all over her, sir?
What?
Are there any cut marks all over her, okay?
I don't know. I haven't looked.
He asks for an ambulance while moving her body to search for wounds. Allen finds something on the back of her head and breaks down.
Okay, tell him to calm down, okay? Tell him to calm down.
Calm down. Calm down.
24-year-old Jill Allen was dead on the floor of the small apartment. She had died from blunt force trauma to the head and body. Inside the bedroom of the home was a baseball bat lying just a few feet from Jill's body. Later, it would be discovered that that bat was one of the weapons used to kill Jill. The other was the butt of a gun. The bed in the couple's bedroom was turned over, the drawers were pulled out of the dresser, and there was blood everywhere. Paramedics arrived, but there was nothing they could do for Jill. She was long gone. The police arrive. They begin to survey the scene. The coroner arrives and removes Jill's body from the apartment, and the investigation begins. The police interview witnesses. They talk to people in Jill's life, in Paul's life. But soon the murder investigation goes cold. The cops bring Paul in and interview him over and over, and then he gets very confrontational with them, and he tells them he's sick of being called in and interviewed. He claims that he wants answers, and he's not getting them. The police get some anonymous tips and some leads, and they bring in a man named George Anthony Taylor because of some of the things told to them in these interviews. Detective Don Bell later told the media, "Somebody decided that they didn't want their wife being around anymore. And so instead of being a stand-up person, this person decided to reach out and find other people to do their dirty work for them." In the course of the investigation, the cops also learned that recently Jill Allen's $10,000 life insurance payout had been raised to $250,000. By who? Well, by Paul, of course. The cops also learned that Jill had been horribly miserable in her marriage. Paul was violently abusing Jill, and she wanted out.
24-year-old Jill Allen died from blunt force trauma to the head, body, and was strangled. Inside the bedroom, one of the murder weapons, a baseball bat. According to police, that, along with the butt of a gun, was used to kill her. The bedroom is in disarray. The bed is overturned. Drawers are pulled out. Blood everywhere. For months, police investigate, but there's no leads, no arrests. Months later, Paul Allen is brought in for questioning.
I don't like coming out here, and I'm just getting sick of it, because nobody tells me much, and then if I do hear something, I get to run around. I'm just starting to get, I want answers, and I'm not getting answers. Yeah, so I'm just getting mad.
The police then get a lead on a second man. His name is Joey Wright. They bring Joey in based on some confidential information. Some people off the streets kind of come forward and say, I've heard a few things about this guy. Joey comes in and he's like, I swear I haven't done anything. I swear to God, I haven't done anything. Well, the police do not believe him. They become convinced that Joey Wright and George Anthony Taylor murdered Jill Allen because Paul Allen hired them to do it. Months go by and people are frustrated. The case is going cold. They wonder if it's going to go anywhere. But then there is an arrest.
But a year after Jill Allen's murder, a suspect is taken into custody. His name, Joey Wright, a well-known criminal in North Salt Lake.
I haven't done anything. I swear to God, I haven't done anything.
Wright and his friend George Anthony Taylor know Paul Allen, and by now, police have a theory.
But this somebody decided that they didn't want their wife being around anymore. And so instead of being a stand-up person, this person decided to reach out and find other people to do his dirty work for him.
During their investigation, police learn there's a possible motive, a $250,000 life insurance policy on Jill Allen.
That's what capital murder is. Okay, it doesn't get any bigger. I mean, they don't get bigger than that. Okay, that's what capital murder is. Anytime you hire somebody to commit a crime of murder.
Both accept plea deals and tell police Allen, seen here in the back of a police car, hired them to murder his wife.
Paul Allen is taken into custody, charged with murder for hire. George Anthony Taylor is arrested as well. Paul Allen vehemently maintains his innocence and even takes a phone call from Jill's mother while he's in prison.
The only thing you had of any value was your wife, and she was priceless. What do you have now? You have nothing. But I don't miss her calling me and telling me how mean you were to her and how unhappy she was. I didn't know what to tell her. Being married to you were the worst years of her life. She called you her husband to come and help her. She said you were so mad. I now know that you were mad she was still alive. The George had chickened out again. She called me from the bathroom one night where she had locked herself in and let me listen to you, yelling at her and calling her filthy names. That was not the voice or language of a loving husband. I heard that night.
Paul Allen goes to trial and he is found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. For 18 years, Paul Allen files appeal after appeal. And then in 2018, he is granted a hearing when fellow inmates, men he's been incarcerated with for years, come forward claiming they have proof that Paul is innocent.
It's rare to have this kind of hearing following a conviction, but the judge wants to hear this so-called new evidence from prison inmates who claim Paul Allen didn't have anything to do with his wife's murder.
Why would they come forward and do this other than because they wanted the truth to come out? One of them told me, I'm not doing this for Paul Allen, I'm doing this for Jill Allen.
It was part of a hearing to discuss new possible evidence from inmates who came into contact with George Anthony Taylor. Taylor's in prison for murdering Jill Allen in 1996. But it was Jill Allen's husband, Paul, who hired Taylor to kill his wife. In 1996, Jill Allen was found beaten to death at the couple's North Salt Lake apartment. Paul Allen was convicted of the murder-for-hire scheme and is currently serving time in prison. Allen claimed he didn't murder his wife, but his appeals to the higher courts have always been rejected. His attorney is now using a different approach to prove his innocence. A judge heard testimony from one of the inmates who came into contact with Taylor while in prison.
He definitely told me that it was a home invasion gone bad, that Paul Allen had absolutely nothing to do with the murder of Jill. I mean, I remember thinking, wow, I mean, that is pretty bad. You're going to put this crime off on somebody that's innocent.
According to a second witness, Joey Wright was a bookie and hired George Taylor to help him out.
This guy hated Paul Allen, and they contracted George Taylor to dispel his gambling debt, and that gambling debt was in exchange for killing Miss Allen.
Wright was actually charged with attempted murder and served time in prison. Taylor is also expected to testify this week, and the state's attorney representing him says none of this is true.
That he did not tell anyone that his testimony has changed, that in fact Paul Allen approached him at the prison and tried to get Mr. Taylor to change his testimony. In fact, offered him a lot of money to change his testimony.
Paul Allen's so-called new evidence didn't sway Jill Allen's mother.
They've all come up with more lies. We've known for 26 years, Paul's been guilty. He was guilty of this.
The state made it known that the testimony from these inmates are convicted killers themselves. Now, the judge isn't expected to make an immediate ruling following this 3-day hearing. For the Justice Files, Marcus Ortiz, ABC4 News.
The judge is not convinced, but Paul does get to continue with the hearing process. And then one day, he just doesn't show up for court. I don't know how that works. When you're in prison and you have a court date, don't they bring you to the court date? When Paul doesn't show up, that stops this new appeal process. And as it stands right now, Paul Allen is sitting at the Utah State Correctional Facility. Jill's family is convinced he is guilty, and many others are convinced of that as well. It does not matter how many of these stories I cover. I just cannot for the life of me understand how these people think they're going to get away with this. And I cannot for the life of me understand how easy it is for them to kill someone rather than just seek a divorce. Thank you for joining me today on Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. Stay off the dark web. Stay off it. Hit the like button if you like the video. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more from me. It helps a lot with the algorithm. I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. I post a lot of shorts. You can also join my Patreon. Some of you give a few dollars a month to help me keep the episodes coming. And you can also be part of our fundraiser. There is a short little video on my channel. It's just called Fundraiser. This is the thumbnail. You can go and watch that video and it will explain all this community is doing to raise money to donate to police departments. We are trying to help solve some cold cases. Most of you know I've got 2 podcasts. This one is Dining with Death. This is an archival series. It's simply the audio taken from the video episodes posted here on YouTube before I rebranded my channel. And this is the current podcast, Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. I post new episodes every Monday and every Wednesday, and there will be some podcast exclusive episodes there, stories you cannot hear here on YouTube. I know I say this all the time, and you guys probably get tired of hearing me say it, but I appreciate you more than you will ever know. I know you have a ton of options for things to watch, and the fact that you spend a few minutes with me watching these episodes means more to me than I will ever be able to tell you. I think about you guys, and I hope you're doing well. Stay safe, my friends, and be kind to each other, and I will see you next time on Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. Bye.